Nicola Sturgeon released without charge following her arrest in the probe into SNP finances. The former Scottish First Minister insists she is innocent of any wrongdoing after she was questioned by police. Also tonight. Energy Secretary Grant Shapps tells ITV News he won't miss the drama around Boris Johnson after the former Prime Minister resigned as an MP. 3 Britons missing after a boat carrying tourists burst into flames off the Egyptian. And the champions of Europe, Manchester City return home after completing an historic treble.
This is ITV News with Gamal Fahnbulleh.
Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon has said she knows beyond doubt that she is innocent of any wrongdoing after she was arrested and detained for 7 hours as part of the investigation into the finances of the SNP. The former First Minister of Scotland has been released this evening without charge following her arrest by arrangement. Ms Sturgeon is the latest high-profile figure in the party to be questioned as part of the inquiry into the whereabouts of funding earmarked for a second independence vote. Our Scotland correspondent, Peter Smith, reports.
Once the most powerful woman in Scotland, today Nicola Sturgeon was arrested. Police Scotland confirmed the former First Minister had been held in custody for more than 7 hours, questioned as a suspect in the ongoing investigation into the funding and finances of the SNP. But this evening she was released without charge, pending further investigation. And an hour after leaving the police station, the former SNP leader published a statement describing her shock and deep distress before adding, "Obviously, given the nature of this process, I cannot go into detail. However, I do wish to say this, and to do so in the strongest possible terms. Innocence is not just a presumption I am entitled to in law. I know beyond doubt that I am in fact innocent of any wrongdoing." This investigation relates to money fundraised for a future independence referendum. Between 2016 and 2019, £600,000 had been donated, but by the end of that year, the SNP accounts showed the party had just under £97,000 left. Police became involved 2 years ago, and questions were asked about the timing of Nicola Sturgeon's sudden resignation back in February, though she insisted she was leaving on her own terms.
I know it might seem sudden, but I have been wrestling with it, albeit with oscillating levels of intensity for some weeks.
This is now the third SNP arrest as part of what police call Operation Branch Form. Nicola Sturgeon's husband, Peter Murrell, the former chief executive of the SNP, was arrested 2 months ago. Weeks later, the party treasurer, Colin Beattie, was arrested. Both were also released without charge pending further investigation. But today's arrest of the former First Minister and SNP leader is a dramatic escalation. Her home in Glasgow has already been searched following her husband's arrest, and opposition parties want her successor as First Minister, Humza Yousaf, to take action.
If Humza Yousaf, as the current First Minister, wanted to show that he could lead his party and could lead the Scottish Government and isn't just in the shadow of Nicola Sturgeon, perhaps suspending her for the party pending this investigation would be the normal course of events and something that he should have done some time ago.
Nicola Sturgeon is tonight free, but her reputation remains on the line. Police say they will submit their report to Scotland's Public Prosecution Service, who will then determine what, if any, action comes next. Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
And Peter joins us from Glasgow. Peter, what are the implications of these latest developments?
Well, there would be many people expecting that the SNP would be struggling in the polls as a result of these high-profile arrests. And while we did see a drop in SNP membership at the start of the year and a drop in SNP support in the polls after Nicola Sturgeon's resignation and a really messy leadership contest to replace her, surprisingly, the polls show that support for the SNP has remained solid at about 38% since the first arrest, the arrest of Nicola Sturgeon's husband, Peter Murrell, the former chief executive of the party. And that is an indication, first first of all, that Labour, if they have any hopes of winning an election, they have to win seats in Scotland, and they shouldn't take these SNP problems for granted as being helping them. But it also reflects how deeply ingrained in civic Scottish society that Nicola Sturgeon created the SNP, and that is how significant her arrest is. She's gone from being praised for the grace and dignity with which she left the stage now, though, to suffering the indignity of having her house searched and being arrested. So rapid has been her decline in her public reputation.
OK, Peter in Glasgow, thank you. The Energy Secretary has told ITV News he won't miss the drama around Boris Johnson after the former Prime Minister stepped down as an MP. Mr Johnson claims he's been forced out by a kangaroo court of MPs investigating whether he lied in Parliament over Partygate. Two other close allies have also resigned. Our political correspondent David Wood joins us now. Somewhat a headache for Rishi Sunak, who's now facing 3 by-elections.
Yes, and I think calling it a headache kind of puts it too politely almost. But the operation from Rishi Sunak's team this weekend has been move on. Effectively, the message from Grant Shapps is that the country and the party have moved on from Boris Johnson. I think that's going to be easier said than done. But so much so is this moving on effort. The Conservative Party chair, Greg Hands, was in mid-Bedfordshire campaigning today. That's one of the areas that will see a by-election after Nadine Dorries, the former Culture Secretary, stepped down. But whilst he was there, another Boris Johnson ally was suggesting that the party is on the brink of civil war. Jacob Rees-Mogg said if the Conservatives ever did anything to stop Boris Johnson standing in a future election, well, then there would be civil war. When I put that to Grant Shapps, he didn't give an exactly ringing endorsement of a Boris Johnson comeback.
I don't think Boris Johnson himself intends to stand at a by-election, otherwise why would he have just resigned from Parliament? And then secondly, it's a matter for the party as and when that situation arose. Again, you know, you ask me about not just Boris, but any candidate for the party has to go through the same processes.
And we're hurtling into a difficult week for the Conservatives. That committee that was looking into Partygate and Boris Johnson will meet tomorrow. It could release its report as early as Tuesday. Government sources suggest that they could move the by-elections, trigger the by-elections this week too, which would see them happening in mid-July. If Rishi Sunak doesn't win them, well, that would damage his brand. And at the same time, Boris Johnson's allies are getting more and more critical of Rishi Sunak. One, Jake Berry, a former party chair, saying the Conservatives need to change their economic direction. This is tough for Rishi Sunak.
OK, let's see what the next few days has in store. David, thank you. In other news today, and 3 British tourists are missing tonight after a fire broke out on their diving boat on Egypt's Red Sea. Dramatic footage showed the boat engulfed in flames. 26 people, including 12 Britons, were rescued from the vessel during the incident. Neil Connery has the latest.
This was the Hurricane dive boat not long after it burst into flames in the Red Sea near Marsa Alam early this morning. Explosions could be seen as the fire spread. 15 British passengers had been on board, along with 10 crew members and 2 guides. Minutes earlier, as smoke billowed, one person was seen clinging from beneath a window as he managed to get onto one of the rescue boats. An electrical fault in the engine room is suspected of being the cause. The fire started while the crew were giving a dive briefing. 3 British tourists are missing. All other passengers and crew were rescued and are reported to be well. Scuba Travel, which chartered the boat, said the group were on a 7-day tour. The Foreign Office says it's supporting the British nationals involved and is in contact with local authorities as investigations get underway. Neil Connery, ITV News.
The International Criminal Court has begun an investigation into the collapse of the Kakhovka Dam. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the update in an address tonight. It comes amid reports that Ukrainians are making gains in the Donetsk region. It comes as Ukraine moves forward with its counter-offensive in the region. 11 teenagers are being questioned tonight on suspicion of murder following the death of a 16-year-old boy in Bath. Emergency services were called to a property last night after reports of a stabbing. The teenagers all currently remain in police custody. The father of 4 children who survived a plane crash in the Colombian jungle has spoken about their ordeal. He revealed their mother was alive for 4 days and told the children to leave the wreckage. He described their rescue as a miracle and said the children were already talking and playing. The children aged 13, 9 and 4, along with an 11-month-old baby, managed to stay alive by eating fruit and cassava flour. On to sport, Novak Djokovic has made tennis history in Paris. The 36-year-old Serb won the French Open final against Casper Ruud in straight sets. It was the 23rd Grand Slam title of his career, overtaking the record of 22 titles he previously shared with Rafa Nadal. Here's Chris Gudder.
It wasn't all plain sailing on his date with destiny. His iron will briefly looked like melting in the early part of his final against Casper Ruud. But then normal service was resumed, and from 3-love down, he fought back to draw level. There is a doubt overhead. And then show why he's near unbeatable in tie-breaks, storming past the Norwegian underdog in a gruelling first set lasting an hour and a half. But then that is what makes Djokovic so hard to overcome. Legendary physical and mental durability, and he knows it. This was the one title that had proved hardest to win while Rafa Nadal reigned supreme in Paris. But as time has caught up with the Spanish great, Djokovic shows no sign of slowing down yet. Title number 23 and counting, his third in Paris. Don't bet against him making Wimbledon number 24. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
And finally, Manchester City's champions are back home tonight after making history in Istanbul. City have become the first team to win the Premier League, FA Cup and Champions League since 1999, an accolade held by their neighbouring rivals Manchester United. Carrie Davis reports from Manchester, where fans are still celebrating.
They are the newly crowned Kings of Europe, returning with club football's crown jewels. Hand luggage that had no chance of being put in the hold. Fans wasted no time purchasing a piece of history. At the club shop, finally, champions of Europe could be emblazoned on their backs.
It's something I thought I'd never see, to be honest. And you know, every game I went to when I was their age, was the last game was to stay up. And now they're champions of Europe.
They've done amazing, and Pep's just God.
You watched at home last night. What were the celebrations like in the living room?
We were like all over the shop.
What time did you eventually get to bed?
12.
Oh, tired one today then?
Yeah.
All worth it though?
Yeah.
While fans danced around their living rooms, 1,600 miles away, players celebrated their match-winning midfielder. Rodri's 68th minute strike will be replayed for decades to come.
Coming onto it now to shoot! Score!
There was ecstasy, but also relief for manager Pep Guardiola. This was not just a dream, but an expectation of the club's Abu Dhabi owner. Some will view this triumph as tainted by charges of financial breaches brought against the club by the Premier League. Allegations Man City fiercely deny. All that far from the minds of the players as they belted out an Oasis classic. And on the other side of the world, the Mancunian who wrote it, Noel Gallagher, was partying with fans in San Diego. The party is far from over. In fact, they're already preparing for tomorrow's trophy parade, a spectacle this city is no stranger to. Man City fans have lined these streets many times before. Manchester is famously split when it comes to footballing loyalties, but tomorrow it will be painted blue. Carrie Davis, ITV News, Manchester.
It's going to be quite the victory parade. That is it for tonight. From all of us here at ITV News, many thanks indeed for watching. Bye.